Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tom, and today I'm taking a look at what used to be my local Ames store in Southwick, Massachusetts, up until it closed around 2002. Nowadays it's an Ocean State job lot, but amazingly they've done almost no renovations on the inside or the outside of the building. Other than the Ocean State job lot logo, it still looks basically the way it did when it was Ames over 20 years ago. They've moved the aisles around, but I wouldn't be surprised if all or most of the fixtures are leftovers from the Ames store. As you'll see, this particular store and a lot of other Ocean State job lots is somewhat run down, but I kind of like that. Out of all the department stores and discount stores I've been to recently, this one feels the most like what Ames, Caldor, Bradley's, and Kmart felt like back in the 80s. So first off, take a look at those lights. I'm sure the bulbs have been changed over the years, of course, but I would say those fixtures are almost certainly from when this was Ames. And I would guess they're probably 30 or 40 years old, at least. And I would guess that the ceiling tiles are just as old. So now here's a little bit of history about Ames. Ames was founded in 1958, and their first store was in Southbridge, Massachusetts, not too far from here. At its peak, there were over 700 Ames stores in 20 states, mostly in the eastern and midwestern states. So if you live in the South or in the West, there's a good chance you've never heard of Ames, or at least you've never been to one. At one time, Ames was the fourth largest discount retailer in the U.S. behind Target, Kmart, and Walmart. However, there were no Walmarts or Targets in this area before the 2000s, so the main competition around here would have been Caldor, Bradley's, and Kmart. My recollection is back in the 80s and 90s, my favorite stores to visit were Caldor and Bradley's. I would occasionally go to Ames, but only if there wasn't a Caldor or Bradley's nearby. I did, however, buy some tables from this actual Ames back in the late 90s, and I still have them today, so they did have some good products back then. Ames started having financial troubles back in the late 80s into the early 90s, and they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 1990. They came out of this first bankruptcy, but by the late 90s, they ran into even worse trouble. Beginning around 1998, 1999, they started closing a lot of stores, and by 2001 they had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy again. And not long after that, they converted the Chapter 11 bankruptcy to Chapter 7 bankruptcy, liquidation, just like what happened recently with Bed Bath & Beyond and the Christmas tree shops. Between 1998 and June 2002, they went from about 600 to 700 stores down to 327 stores. They then closed all of the remaining 327 stores just a few months later, and then that was the end of Ames as of 2002. Not long after that, this Ocean State job lot moved in, and from what I understand, Ocean State job lot actually ended up buying a lot of the old Ames stores that closed in that time period. Ocean State job lot was founded in 1977 in Rhode Island, and if you're wondering why this store has such an unusual name, it's because Rhode Island is actually known as the Ocean State, and job lot means a miscellaneous group of items usually sold or bought together. Thus you have the Ocean State job lot. In this part of the country, we're pretty much used to the name, but I can imagine people hearing it for the first time and wondering what kind of store it is. So kind of like Christmas tree shops, it may not be the best name for a store, but the name does appear to be here to stay. As of the filming of this video in the summer of 2023, there are currently 145 Ocean State job lot stores, mostly located in New England, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So it's very much a northeastern chain, and it's a much smaller store than Ames was. Ocean State job lot, as you can see, is considered a discount store, a lot like the Christmas tree shops were. However, based on my visits to a single Christmas tree shop, it's not quite as nice as the Christmas tree shops was. A lot of the items are overstocks and unsold merchandise from other stores like Target, Walmart, etc. And personally, I consider Ocean State job lot to be a junk store. But I have to admit, I really like coming here once in a while to see what unusual stuff they have for sale. I often find stuff here that most other stores in the area just don't have, especially when it comes to the food section, as we'll see in a minute. So now let's take a look around and see what else is left from Ames. And don't forget, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. Thanks. I would say without question these floors were here when Ames was here. And if you look closely, you can see marks in the linoleum here where there used to be aisles and other stuff. And I think that was probably from when Ames was here, honestly, because I don't think they've moved this store around much since it's been Ocean State Job Lot. Here's the toy section, and if I were a kid, I would not want to come to this Ocean State Job Lot for the toys because the selection's pretty bad. It's a lot of either generic toys, like knockoffs, or just, you know, name brand stuff that nobody else wanted. And a lot of it's actually pretty old. It's, you know, been on the shelves for at least 5 years, if not longer. So like this here, it's from Star Wars The Force Awakens, and that movie came out in 2015, so that's about 8 years old. Probably 9 years old, because it probably came out before the movie did. And then this is from Star Wars The Last Jedi, which came out in 2017, so that's about 6 years old. And you, of course, wouldn't find stuff, you know, 6 or 8 years old at most other major stores. And then down on the bottom shelf here, they have even older stuff. This is Spy Math, whatever that is, but it's a game. It says it's from 2004. And I would bet this has been here since 2004. Not surprisingly, it doesn't look like the most exciting game I've ever seen. But there's a lot of stuff like that, especially in the electronics section. They have a lot of old electronics, probably from the early to mid-2000s, that have just been sitting here all that time. Now, if I were a kid back in the 80s, I might have been interested in this G.I. Joe helicopter thing. Maybe. But I think even back then, that would have been considered like a low-end G.I. Joe toy. Same with this glider. You know, you'd have the action figures, the vehicles, and then you'd have, you know, these types of helicopters and gliders, which, you know, weren't quite as good as the mainline toys. I think these were the only action figures they had here, these Hasbro Fantastic Four figures, which I think are fairly new, maybe from 2022. I looked them up on Amazon, and they sell for about 20 bucks each on Amazon. They had them for $12.99 here, and they were all in pretty good condition. So if you're into that, this would be a pretty good find. But besides these figures, I mean, there really wasn't much here that most like toy collectors would be interested in, I don't think. So let's take a look in the back, see what we can see. And yeah, that looks pretty dated. I mean, I would bet you a lot of those boxes have been back there for 20 years or more. Very old school looking to me. And now let's go take a look at the bathrooms, because these bathrooms are pretty ancient. And don't worry, nobody was in the bathroom, so. But these bathrooms here, these look like they're out of the 60s or 70s to me. Easily. Pretty interesting, though. Definitely the oldest looking bathrooms I've ever seen at a department store in the last, 20 or 30 years. And this water fountain is probably just as old. And maybe I haven't been looking, but I haven't seen too many stores selling hazmat suits. They're only $3 a piece. That's a pretty good deal for a hazmat suit, even though I don't know what hazmat suits go for. I would imagine $3 is not a bad price. So as you can probably tell, this store feels pretty dead. It gets pretty quiet in here in some spots. In other spots, they do have music playing, which I had to mute out to avoid copyright. But a lot of the stores like this, where you can hear almost nothing, it can actually get kind of creepy sometimes, especially when there's nobody else around. It almost feels like the store is closed and I shouldn't really be here. This store used to have a whole aisle full of discount books, and it was really great. You could find a lot of stuff in here real cheap. Now they just have it at the end of the aisle, so I don't know why they got rid of that. But you should be able to find like graphic novels here, like, you know, hardcover and softcover comic books, and, you know, a lot of popular novels for only $3 to $5 each. And then they have this aisle here where they have a lot of the electronic stuff. And a lot of it is just garbage, like garbage USB cables, garbage HDMI cables, headphones and earbuds that just sound terrible. And I swear this exact stuff has probably been here for 10 to 15 years at least. Here's the greeting card aisle, and they have a lot of weird greeting cards here. A lot of stuff nobody else wanted, like these hot dog thank you cards. Not sure what the relation is between hot dogs and thank yous, but there you have it, and they have quite a few of those. Then down here they have these invitations for a 95-year-old's birthday party. Guess who's turning 95? And I would imagine there's a pretty good reason why they have so many of these, and it's probably because very few people know anybody that's 95, and if they do, the odds of them coming in here looking for a birthday card for that 95-year-old are pretty slim. I would imagine there's not a very big market for those cards. And then I guess these are the party favors, so here's a little bag of insects for the kid's birthday party. Those are kind of cool, actually. Only $1.99 for a whole bag of bugs. It's not a bad deal. They've also got this weird brand of toilet paper and paper towels, Royale, which has these dogs and cats on them. And they always look to me like they're like for pets. But I think they're just normal human paper towels and toilet paper. I guess it's no weirder than having bears on paper towels, but I don't know. They always just strike me as something for pets. Now we're getting into the food section, and like I said, they have some pretty unusual food items here, which I just don't see anywhere else, like these vegan gummy bears. You know, I'm sure they sell them somewhere else, but I don't know of anywhere else that has them. And there's a lot of stuff like that. So that's honestly one of the reasons I come here, is just for the food, because it's so unusual a lot of the times. So as you can probably tell, this store feels pretty dead. It gets pretty quiet in here in some spots. In other spots, they do have music playing, which I had to mute out to avoid copyright. But a lot of the stores like this, where you can hear almost nothing, it can actually get kind of creepy sometimes, especially when there's nobody else around. It almost feels like the store is closed and I shouldn't really be here. I've never seen Avatar branded cornflakes before. And again, I'm sure there's other stores that sell these, but they haven't been in any store I've been to recently. I've tried these before, and they're not that great. They look nice, but they're really dry. So I guess if you had them with a glass of milk or something, they might be okay, but otherwise they're extremely dry. They just crumble in your mouth. These are some of my favorites, these Archway raspberry-filled cookies. They're kind of hard to find outside of Ocean State Job Lot. They used to have them at Stop and Shop and Big Y, but now I can never find them there. But, you know, here they've got 2 cases of them. And then Tim Tams. I think these are Australian cookies. So these are very uncommon outside of Ocean State Job Lot around here. You might be able to find them in the international section at Stop and Shop, maybe, but definitely not this many of them, not this many different flavors. Now, I've never had these, but these look disgusting. These are apple cider vinegar drinks, and I've tried apple cider vinegar by itself, and it's pretty grotesque. I mean, it's vinegar, and they've added fruit flavors to them, so I don't know. Maybe they taste okay, but I can't imagine those being any good. I'll have to try them one day, but it just seems disgusting to me. If anybody out there has had a apple cider vinegar drink before, let me know what it tastes like. These are kind of weird. These are pepperoni flavored sausage snacks. It's kind of weird to have a meat that's flavored like another meat. I think. I don't know. Seems weird to me. Here's the candy aisle. And again, they have a lot of stuff here that you won't usually find at a lot of other stores. There's a lot of stuff here, of course, you will find pretty much everywhere, but Not all of this, especially a lot of the stuff which I believe is probably foreign, like it's from Europe. And you kind of think, being an American, that, oh, it's from Europe, so it must be fancy and high quality, but a lot of it's not. It's actually lower quality, in my opinion, than a lot of the normal stuff you find around here. But the wrappers look really pretty, and they make you think it's fancy, but it's not. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Like this thing here is Mega Choco. I'm pretty sure this is from somewhere in Europe. And you would think it's looks kind of fancy, I guess, but I've had one. It's not that great. It's, you know, it's Hershey level or lower. Same with this Triplo. It also kind of sounds like it's Italian, but it's just not that great. Which would explain the dollar price tag on them. Same with these chocolates here. Again, they have an exotic name and they seem fancy, but not that great, in my opinion. This is kind of cool, a whole bag of dinosaurs. And they actually sell some pretty cheap air conditioners here. And if you've never tried one of these electric fly swatters before, I would highly recommend them. They're very effective. And they're kind of fun to use, too. Those are some pretty crazy looking garden gnomes there with those goggles and flashlights for some reason. And as you can see, they just have a lot of stuff here, a lot of selection. Not all of it's great. You know, most of it I would say is not that great, which is probably why it's here to begin with. But that's why I call it a junk store, and that's why it's so interesting to search through all this stuff, I think. And let me know what you think about it in the comments. These sunglasses are straight out of the 80s. They look like something the Macho Man would have worn. And I think he probably did. Too bad they're too small for my head, though. And there you have it. That is the former Ames, the current Ocean State job lot in Southwick, Massachusetts. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. I've got a lot more videos coming up. Mall videos, store walkthroughs, flea markets, you name it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.